Greetings, dear friends. We continue our lessons on the online store. In this lesson, we will work with the checkout form. Let's go to the checkout page. It looks like this on our website, and we need to make it look like this. The first thing that catches the eye is its structure. Note that by default on the checkout, we don't have our header, no footer. That is for the purposes of optimization and marketing. WooCommerce by default created such a template that loads a simplified header and entirely without a footer. That is on the checkout, only the payment form. We will fix this now and make it a classic approach. The second point is about the fields. If we look closely at the form, at what we have on the page and our design, we have almost 100% match. The same fields and approach are applied here exactly as in the cart. If you are satisfied with the block layout according to the design, we will use it. If it doesn't satisfy according to the design, then a shortcode is used, and this shortcode can already be edited in the source files. All right, let's go through everything step by step. Now let's figure out how this page is built. If you open the checkout page, I have blocks. 2 blocks, these ones. Or rather, 2 columns, and within them there are many different ASIL blocks. Some have settings, some do not. Well, for example, let's take the billing block. We can make some fields required, some optional, and so on, but that's not really our concern. Right now, the structure of the page itself is more important. The structure is defined in the editor, so let's go to the editor. We look for the checkout page. Here it is. And if we look at the introductory code, you see a different header is loaded here, not the header we need. Therefore, here we load our specific header, set it to the first position, and remove this header from here. The second thing we need is the footer. Let's pay attention to them. We have a footer block that we created now, and as a component block of the footer, we drag exactly the component block of the footer because into this component inside. We already insert this block of ours. Don't make a mistake here. The color immediately indicates what exactly needs to be pulled. And so we pull the footer, set it to the bottom position further down our page. We have a block with a header. So we write header and search for this block. Here it is. We add it. Fill it with content. This is our single page, and we'll set some image for this block. Then save the page. And now if I switch and refresh, I already see the structure I want to see, which is in my layout. I see here that styles are being applied, like this border that we set for the cart, but we put this style for the cart in a separate file and wrote conditions to show it only on the cart. Let's check. It's not loading. I created everything. Look, it's loading here, which means our conditions aren't working. And if we check on the main page, it's loading on the main page too, I see. So we made a mistake somewhere. Let's go back to functions PHP, where we registered it, and take a look. Here we set the cart conditions. It loads only on in the picture, everything is correct here. But here we call enqueue, and we call it through these hooks. And consequently, it loads them on the front end as well. Let's try the following approach. We'll check for the admin area from admin. And indeed, we'll load these files only if we are specifically in the admin area. And we'll just close this check. Let's now update. Now you see wonderfully, the styles have disappeared. But we can do even better. For us, these styles, this file will be needed also on checkout, so as not to create a separate file. Already, according to your requirements, if you have a lot of CSS, you can split it into 2 files. But I don't have much of it. Therefore, I'll call it custom, rename this file to custom. And I will put into it the overall CSS code for WooCommerce, like this. But I will update this condition, that is, not only on the cart, but also on the checkout. Therefore, I will insert the OR condition from what I've read. The checkout function will return on this page, checkout, and not only on this. On the thank you page, then the success file, meaning there are some technical pages, sort of like the second and third steps after checkout, and for them, this file will also be loaded. So that's good. Let's update now. Everything is great now. Next, we need to see where the second block went. This block, why is it shifting? Most likely, it doesn't have a class assigned, or rather a style. Let's fix that. So let's look here. Are some additional. Here are those 8 pixels. Need to be reset. So let's go over the styles. For just 1 or 2 minutes, guys, I won't spend a lot of time on this. It's not important to show you the functionality of WordPress and WooCommerce. If you have questions about certain styles, just write about it in the feedback form. I will return to this point, if necessary, and record a video where I style the elements to look exactly like in the layout, if needed, but I think it's not necessary. So we made the right section now, onto the left section. Let's figure it out. So by default, we bought one product and our data is collapsed. But by default, when a client goes to checkout, they will have a form like this. Let's compare it with our form. So the difference with our form is that we have a placeholder. But here, that is, there is no placeholder. So if I erase this, but it is there, but you see it appears as a label, and the label just moves somewhere up, probably in some field state. We can disable it because you see, we don't have this shift, and the design still needs to be adjusted to our structure. Let's do this. In fact, there's nothing complicated about it. We will style one field. Let's take this field as a sample. You see this label, and if I fill something in, an active class is added here, and it moves up according to the active class, leading it up there. So let me then, this label will simply be hidden by the active class. I don't need it. Here in this pizza file, I'll leave a comment. What exactly is the purpose of these styles? And I remove the label in the case when we have active, that is when the field is filled with something. If the field is not filled, the label is displayed in the center. Next, this input when we have something filled in, because it has more padding on top. Whereas if it's empty, the padding we have somewhere. Let's find it. Here is this padding. Then by default, so we set the padding, but this padding is specifically when we have active activated, like this, we add active here. We update and here is our field. If I click on it, the label hides. I fill it in and consequently I get what I have according to the layout. Yes, further on. We have recorded only for the phone type, so it only displays nicely here. Here we need to fix it. Let's do that. Thus we will copy all these fields. And they are all in the active state because I specifically copied from the active field, and now they should be everywhere. And here it is no longer present. Here, where we get what we are supposed to get. Select. This is also the same approach. We need to figure out what this label is. Most likely it's a simple label. Yes, it is. The same approach, just styled. We need to take the class selector from edit. If we look closely at the page, we see an offset on our wrapper. Our wrapper does not shift for the cart. We created a personal class, and here we did not add it. And for this reason, here is our structure. It is crooked. Let's add the same class to this page. It started with Game Store, this class. Therefore, in the editor, let's return to the checkout page and select the group. For this group, so if I checked page 2 on the checked page, let's set it and check. So here is our group, the checkout reason with nothing I don't see, at least this class. So I will still set it on the group. Most likely this checkout 5 is just a wrapper, and in the previous section when we worked with the cart, most likely we also set it on the group. So we drag it to the group, then save. Do not refresh. Everything is great. Now we have removed this wrapper in the center. Everything is styled. Here it's great. We need to add styles to the forms themselves, because if I switch to the dark version, you see we don't have flowers. But let's spend another minute and write down the style of these selections and take one of them. Select, for example, this one. Oh no, we don't need the active one. This state, let's take it from here. Not a list of selectors is needed. And I'll add to them styles. So we set the border and border radius. And we will also need a background. Probably we'll just enable transparent, or if not transparent, then a variable with background. But I think transparent will do just fine. And since we're styling, let's also style the text inside the form. We also style the label, because the text we see, we've styled this text now, and this text is a label. It's not even a placeholder, but a tag label. It's just positioned absolutely, and when the field is active, it hides. This label, let's apply to it. Set it. So we don't need line height. Essentially, these are the styles we apply to the label. Let's take a look now. So mouse it's glitchy. Well, all the fields turned out to be very small. And the font is also very small. 12 pixels, indeed, we have 12 pixels here. To 12 pixels, but okay, so I won't repeat myself. Right now, it's more important to focus on the style, just to ensure that colors are set for both dark and light versions. Yes, now it's perfectly visible, but also active can remove the background. I think here we have with active background, transparent. Yes, this is the active one, and all types of inputs. Here we can check, okay, well, also when active, some opacity is added. We should remove that opacity too. But I'll stop here. Maybe we'll also adjust this field, since we're actually hiding this label. Next, we'll remove the top padding on select. How much is it? Padding, top menu. Yes, it moves to the center wonderfully like this. And the background most likely is on the container. Somehow it is set on this container. Background, transparent. Next, we need to find exactly what the border is currently set on. On this component, next, we can also set the colors. Essentially from one and the same selector, yes, let's try to apply it or set it on it. But like this, when you quickly want to write styles, you miss everything. Focus on nothing. Let's take a look. So wonderful. Next, the sizes. And this drop-down select also needs to be styled. Here we have direct select. Select, therefore, in general and in general. On hover, a separate color needs to be set. dark. Okay, sizes of this block. Here they are. Select container. We have here, we have a height of 48. By the way, we can also set the height on the input. So the outline, let's take a look. The active outline is more like brighter perhaps, but otherwise okay. Otherwise everything is great. Let's switch to the light mode and everything is okay there too. But this is not the final result, guys. Of course, we need to find either the active one, this outline, whether to make it everywhere, keep it dark like now, or make it lighter. That's another question in principle regarding this page. What else do we need to implement? Here is the marker. Yes, we can insert this marker into the class or group that we have set, then the button and fields. We have a lot of fields here, but there are few here. Since this is a block, we cannot edit this block. It is built on JavaScript. It is not recommended to hide fields with JavaScript. There is a special plugin that I used for classic checkouts, but it should also work with block checkouts. Let's install it. It's called Checkout Files. Go to Plugins, add New, and search for Checkout Fields. This plugin, it is very popular in almost every project. I use it wherever a form is used in WooCommerce, we activate it. It allows you to disable any fields as well as add some additional fields. If needed, it is convenient because you don't have to use code. And you don't have to worry about vulnerabilities. This is the plugin. Then it adds a separate tab in the WooCommerce checkout. Now let's move on to the form and let's see what we can disable here. Looking at our layout, first name, last name, country. So what is unnecessary? And what are these fields anyway? The first name, last name, address, e.g. For example. By the way, here you can also additionally style and disable, and these or the display of these red arrows can also be spend time on this or place them in the center. Let's take a look at just this label with the arrow class. It needs to be positioned in the center, but the bodies will disable something like the zip code. We don't need this one. It's not required for us, so we disable it. Looking at the checkout, this field, the code will now disappear. It's gone now. They are there. I was inattentive. Here I checked from files and here the block checked from files. We are using a block Barasin, so here we'll revert to the default style and move to the block and into the block. Email is a separate section. Address is a separate section. and personal information is also a separate section, which is empty. Let's disable this postcode here. Now, we no longer have the postcode, and this field stretches across the entire line. And this way you can disable what is not used and add separate fields. This is done through a plugin. Everything is safely checked. With time, we'll go over it again visually. I see that the label is not centered. So, for this label, the value, so the top I see is a static value and it moves up by 50%. It needs to be like this, 50%, and translate y minus 50, and it goes right to the center. This particular class, I don't know if we have it or not. Yes, there is this class, meaning the top 10% is now centering so well, but on the left, padding should be added next. This is the margin on our block, and padding here means what we are looking for in the game. Stalker pudge, meaning most likely it has padding left and padding right set by a variable that is generally assigned to all groups. We update it and set the margin button. We'll take it from some block. The clamp value. And add it. Let's do it for them now. So everything is perfect. Here the margin has been added in line. And I think that for the checkout page, style-wise, everything is sufficient. Here it's perfectly clear. Next, it's just a matter of going through the headings, texts, and forms. Align everything nicely here, add style. You can throw it all together. You can structure it in this file. It all depends on your development approach. I'll stop here. I won't focus more on CSS styling. But in this lesson, I'll show you something else. The main problem with these last two pages, cart and checkout, is that we are using blocks. If we were using the classic approach with shortcodes, we know that we can change the entire body in PHP and HTML through PHP files. I hinted and showed you in previous lessons how this is done. But in this case, we are essentially doing a lot of work. That is, when we use blocks, we add some styles. After all, we save a lot of time. When we start customizing a lot and writing everything from scratch, it takes a very long time. There is another way. For example, we are on the cart page. Cart. When we do it through Gutenberg, as you have seen, we can create a very beautiful page. But what if we need to add or edit something here? In this case, I will show you now how to approach this using hooks. Because all of this that is displayed here or on the checkout are separate blocks. And we can, at the stage when this block is rendered, for example, this block, I don't know if it's one or several lines. Let's check. When it is rendered, we can create our own custom cube there, and through the ovens, using our files with blocks. Add some of our own elements. For example, yes, you see here, these are separate elements. Essentially, this is a separate block. This is a separate block. This is a separate block. Button, separate block. I can now kind of create my own hook here. Here, and having our own hooks, we can attach there pieces of code. So let's also look here. Specifically on the cart page, what blocks are there? Because WordPress, when it uses a block, for example, you see it adds data block name. This block ID is WooCommerce store notes. Next, WooCommerce cart. So this entire structure is one cart block. Of course, there can be small blocks within it. Let's take a look here. So I don't see much here, but we'll try now, and here's why I'm showing you this. It's important to take these block IDs. You can view them through the source code here or open the folder. You go to the folder block, and there you can take these keys. And at the stage when rendering occurs, we will throw this into the render and add action to create our action. Let's find some PHP file and add it. We'll do this in the core game store plugin. Create a new file, name it vblocks.pip. Open PHP. Let's load this file in the main. And create a hook. So we will have a certain function, WooCommerce.blocks, so that we will create these core actions, and it will be on a filter. Therefore, it will request block content. Close, you can't see it, and block. Next, we will have a certain variable blocks, and it will be an array, and it will contain a list of all blocks, such a list. In the camera with cards and so on, all the blocks that exist, you list them. I will pause them from one of my projects. I will copy them so that in the source code you have everything that I write in the video. I always attach the complete template at the end. Therefore, if you are watching this lesson and nothing is attached to it, go to the last one. And there, 100%, there will be an archive of the entire project, and you will be able to use copy-paste. So I added more blocks. Next, we need to perform a check. Now, if in this variable, which is also an array, by the key block ones, our ones are already from this list of blocks, then we do the following. We create an action. We name it, I'll create some prefix game store. And then the name of this block. I'll output this content. Create another action, meaning I create an action before and after. Here, it might be logical to also add before. If we need only one, we add it, but very often. And you might have noticed in the press that there is a hook before the block and after the block. Therefore, here we also use this approach, meaning essentially we have created our custom hooks through doAction. They will start with game store, store, before, then let's add an underscore here. And here, Instead of this, the block will be dynamically supplied. Therefore, in the place where I want to display something, I will know that I have my dynamic hook there, which I can connect to. And I return the block content. Next, I do this using a filter hooking onto the render block. This can be done not only for vacancy. Render block is a filter from WordPress, and I hook Let's add a prefix here as well. In general, the recommendation for any functions is to always use your own prefix tag, otherwise conflicts may arise. And how many parameters? Do we have 2 parameters, I think? Yes, 2 parameters. Set the priority to maximum so that at the very end, it is interpreted. Now, essentially when this basket is called, let's say this is not Gutenberg, right? But purely for demonstration, let's assume we need to output something. Before this block here, it could be a small block inside somewhere. It's clear that in Gutenberg we can easily add this directly through the editor if we need to extract something either in this same file or in a PHP file or in any template file. We will use an action, we will call this action, I want to output before, so I use this one, and we were talking about this block. This is its name, meaning this is the custom hook I just created. And the second callback function, I can write the function right here and echo. Hello? It's such a callback. We look on the side, you see, now I can climb onto the stove into any area. Let's remove this callout. So now I have set up blocks for the cart. If you want to customize the checkout, then take them for the checkout. If it's a single page, but we have a single page from our own blocks now, so it's useless to create such dynamic hands for a single page. But still, for your general knowledge, you should know that this approach can be applied. Now you may have noticed that not all IDs for the blocks are in the source code. You need to look at them in the source code, not on the site. But here, that is, we open our page in Edit View, for example, and go to the edit code. And here are these IDs. Here's one block. Here's another block, and so on, all separately. These are the separate blocks that you copy-paste and create here. That is, the list of blocks should only include those for which you will use hooks. That is, if you are not using certain blocks, don't create unnecessary load. For example, we only used it for the cart, so we removed everything unnecessary. I inserted them and left them so that you simply have an archive, so you don't have to manually go in separately and search. But perhaps it would be more correct if you specifically understand where you need it and what you need, copy the ID in this way, and create a dynamic hook for it. In principle, regarding the online store section, we have implemented the most important features for the cart checkout archive and single. And the first part of this course is completed. Officially, that is, we have completed the first part of this course. Why do I divide it into parts? Because, for example, right now I won't move on to these static pages because half of the blocks are already implemented. This one is done, this one is done, this one is done. It doesn't make sense to spend time now just pulling them out and filling them with content. And those that are not implemented, for example, like this one, the header, they are very simple, and it will be your homework to implement them. That's why I'm not recording them for lessons yet. But what will we do next? Next, I will wait for feedback from the students of this course to see what problems have arisen, what desires have emerged, maybe a specific option. And by the time you reach this lesson, you will be completing. The ones we have, I will start on the second part and maybe draw new pages, maybe update these blocks and make them more interesting. And in the second part, we will return to finish the pages that are missing. For example, 404, again, this is a separate block that is displayed on a separate page in the editor. For template, page name, and it's clear that you need to create a simple block and pull it onto this page. And the block here is very trivial, consisting of 2 images. So the task for the students is the following. Go through and complete all the content that has arisen. If there are problems, write in the feedback form and also suggest functionality in the feedback form that you usually need to implement for your projects, but you don't know how. So that in the second part, I can work on it and record lessons specifically for implementation. Such more custom blocks related to online stores or in general with Gutenberg and WooCommerce. With this, we conclude this lesson.